Let's talk about the Sporting Kansas City game, Noah. Keep this moving right along.
Did you see they added you? They came after you.
Wait, are you talking about how they said that the Seattle is one of the most unlikable clubs in MLS?
Yeah.
I thought that was a little bit rich coming from them.
Yeah.
But they're welcome to that opinion. Seattle is playing them at Children's Mercy Park on Saturday as part of the Matchday 19 slate in MLS, where there's only 4 games on Saturday. So it's a small slate. Seattle will be a part of it, back in action after having a bye week with the Columbus Crew choking and losing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. And Sporting KC, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts, they're a bit of an interesting case study right now. They're one of the worst teams in Major League Soccer.
They're bad.
They're down horrendously bad. Like I've seen them down bad. They were down pretty bad at the start of last year too, and then they actually got really hot and were one of the better teams in the league down the stretch and made the playoffs and actually beat the top seed St. Louis City in the playoffs. So they were kind of in a similar situation last year and then put it together. But this is worse. Let me just read the numbers for you.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 2-9-5. 2-9-5.
Yeah.
Last in the West, and they're going into this game having lost 7 straight games. That's honestly like kind of hard to do in MLS. Like there's so much parity in the league, and you play so many games where there's teams that are playing rotated lineups and have tons of injuries and are coming in from really long road trips, that even when you're in bad form, you usually run into at least a draw or two somewhere along a 7-game sample. They've taken 7 L's in a row. And I will say, I was looking at the form guide, and it's not like they're getting boat raced in every single one of these games. They've been competitive in a few of them. But still, if you lose 7 straight in MLS, you are down really bad for that. Peter Vermees is not happy about it. I've been watching every single one of his press conferences. I love a Peter Vermees post-game L presser. He had the really good one that we recapped on the show a couple weeks ago, where he had, or I think on the Crew show actually. Yeah.
We did that one and the iPad one.
Yeah. So he's been popping off, and I really, it's funny. Any other team, run a form like this, I think the coach's job status would be a big topic of debate. I really don't get that vibe at all from them. They're just going to ride Peter Vermees for as long as he wants to be the coach there. Last year, when they were in a really bad run of form, people were talking about it, and they ended up getting hot, and he saved his job. But I don't even know if that he saved his job. I think they probably would have just. He's got the most security in the league. I could be wrong. Maybe he's been there for long enough, and they're in a bad enough run of form right now that this is what finally does it. But that's not usually I have a good sensor for these things.
Yeah.
Remember, we're going to talk about Gonzo Pineda, but I was saying, this is coming. You can read between the lines of the Garth Lagerwey interview. You can see how just the vibes around the club, you can tell when it's happening. I don't get that vibe with Peter Vermees. I think he's going to keep this job, like I said, for as long as he wants it. And we'll see if they can dig out of this. Seattle has gained a little bit of a reputation for being a get-right opponent for certain clubs.
Specifically Sporting?
Well, yeah, Sporting, and I was going to say the Portland Timbers.
True.
At past points. But the last time Seattle went to Children's Mercy Park, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the game where Jordan Morris scored 4 goals. Liam Chu had 4 assists.
That's the last time any Sounder has had a hat trick.
Yeah, that's true. That was probably the best performance of last season. Honestly, a road game where you hang 4 goals on the opponent.
That or Charlotte.
All 4 of them. Yeah, the Charlotte game. But that game was a tie. They won. They won the Sporting KC game. Jordan had 4 goals, so they know that they can win there. And this Sporting KC team, when I look at it, it's pretty much the same group that they had last year that got really hot last year. So it's not like there's no talent on the team. But I was just looking at it I was kind of looking at it all right, why are they so bad right now? What is going on? And it's an obvious thing, but their DPs are not really producing. Johnny Russell and Alan Polito have combined for 5 goals, and then you have Daniel Salloway, who only has 1 goal. He's got 3 assists, but that's just pretty anemic production from the guys that are supposed to carry the load for you. And one of Johnny Russell's goals came last week when they were down 3-0. So he hasn't scored. He's very many, if any, goals of consequence this year. He's 34. So I think it sort of looks like a situation where a little similar to Seattle, to be honest, where you've got a couple DPs that are a little on the older side and aren't producing like they used to. And that can really drag you down in MLS. And it's Seattle's at least like in the playoff mix. Like Sporting KC, we're talking about wooden spoon type stuff for them.
I mean, they're not beating the Revs to the wooden spoon, but
I mean, they might, man. Like, let's just look at this real quick. Sporting KC's at 11 points, 2-9-5. The Revs are at 10 points, 3-10-1. That's not that different. Like, they're on relatively similar paces. And if I had to put a prediction on it, like, I think Sporting KC will turn it around to some degree. It is what they did last year. Got off to an incredibly bad start and then got hot. And like I said, it's not like they're getting blown out in most of these games. So I would be surprised if they stay this bad all year and are wooden spoon contending. But they are wounded right now, and I think that gives Seattle. For Seattle, like, when you're playing an opponent that's down this bad, you have to take at least a point. You have to take at least a point. You should be able to win this game. Honestly, like, this team is not good right now. They're more focused on mixed martial arts in all likelihood than they are in winning the game. So, get a result. That should be attainable here. Like, we always talk about when Seattle's playing a desperate and wounded opponent. That's not always a good thing. You have a team who's playing at home who really needs a win. They're probably gonna come out and try and get on top of you. But I mean, they've probably been getting that messaging for the last, like, however many weeks that they need to start winning these games, and they haven't been able to do it yet. If you could go in there and beat them, make it 8 straight L's, I don't think it would be the final nail for Peter Vermees's job, but, like, it's at least a discussion.
Yeah,
it's got to
be like whiteboard, corkboard locker room activity to be like, hey, remember when this dude clowned on you after his player chokeslammed you? Christian, you better bang in 3 goals, buddy.
Yeah, 8 straight L's in MLS. Like I said, man, that's like legitimately hard to do.
Yeah,
that's hard to do.
I think USL teams have done better in like Open Cup than like sport. Like, if you compared, 8 straight L's, like, no, like even USL teams at the mid level would do better against MLS clubs.
Man, it's a tantalizing proposition to be able to send them to 2-10-5. Maybe the Revs run into a dub in their game against the Red Bulls, which is unlikely, but then Sporting KC would be bottom of the league. Man, you have a real chance here. You have a real chance. It feels like too much to ask, doesn't it, for them to just win this game?
Absolutely.
My prediction would be like a 0-0 or a 1-1 draw for this game between these two teams, neither of which have been lighting the world on fire on offense this year.
No.
But we'll be watching, and we'll be here with the post-game reaction show, so stay tuned for that. Unless you had anything else on Sporting KC, I was going to hit a couple of the other news items from around MLS, and then we can call it a day for episode 41. Keep it a little short one here today.
Yeah, no, shout out to my former employer. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough scenes for them these days.
I know.
It's sort of this is the Noah derby, isn't it?
It really is. I got my start there as a photo intern, and that was the season where it was the season after they had won the Open Cup. So everything kind of just went down from there. So I'm sorry? ? Maybe it was my fault.
They've been a good team for, like, the way I usually think of them before the last couple years is like a good team that's a fringe contender, but that never can, like, they always choke in the playoffs.
They also build their roster like MLS 1.0.
They were also subject to, they're still, I think part of the reason they were so hyped on the professional wrestling thing was they're still mad about the 2016 playoff game where Seattle beat them on their way to MLS Cup, which in the VAR era, Seattle would have lost that game because what happened in that game, which people kind of forget this, and correct me if my memory is wrong, but Nelson Valdez scored the game winner, which was he was offside. He was offside, and the ref didn't quit. But it was very borderline. But he was offside, and Seattle won on that goal. But Matt Beasler, I think, scored a goal for Sporting KC that was called offside, and he was not offside. So, like, they really, like, the fact that Seattle won that game, they got a little blessed with that. Sporting KC fans were mad. They were not happy about that, which I get it. But, I mean, that's, it's too bad. It's unfortunate. But, and Seattle went on to win MLS Cup that year. So I think, like, when their website talks about how Seattle's the most unlikable team in the league, and they get all hyped up when one of their players does a rock bottom maneuver against a Seattle player on the field, I think that's where that animosity comes from. Is they still feel like they should have won that playoff game. The one thing I will say about that is, like, in the VAR era, like, you don't know that the game would have played out the exact same way had, like, Beasler's goal stood. Then maybe Seattle's pushing harder. They get an equal. Like, the whole game would have been entirely different. So you can't really just look at it like, oh, well, our goal got waved off and their goal stood when it should have got waved off. Therefore, it should have been 1-0 the other way. That's the butterfly effect, guys.
Yeah,
like, that's what I've always said in response to that. But I do understand that it's frustrating to have both a call where a team has an offside goal that's allowed to stand and you have a goal that's called offside that wasn't in the same game. Like, I don't begrudge that necessarily.
I still think it's funny, though, that they think we're, like, the most hated or we're one of the worst. Like, I don't think about you, little bro. I don't think about you.
Definitely not this year when you're 2-9-5. I mean, for as much as we've been clowning on the Sounders this year, they're not 2-9-5.
No.
Like,
they're literally just a bit club. Like, the only thing that they're known for is literally a wrestling move. Like, that and, like, having the same DP since MLS began in 1996. Like,
he has been on the team forever. And Polito has been like, whenever he plays, he's a good number 9 in the league, but they have a lot of the same issues with him that Seattle's having right now. He's just, his hamstring is perpetually it's a little bit of a Rui Diaz situation with the Polito hamstring.